Phase filters is perhaps the most interesting part of the entire phasing toolset. Phase filters tie together all of the other phasing settings. With a phase filter, you can determine which objects should display in a particular view, and more importantly, how. So I'm in a file here called Phasing Filters, and I'm in my Level 1 Phase 1 New Construction Plan. Now, if you've been following along in previous movies, this file deviates slightly from what we've done before in that the settings for these walls are actually slightly different. So the client came back to us and decided that they wanted to keep this portion of the building as long as possible. So while the construction of this building is going on, they want to keep this one. So rather than demolish it in Phase 1, we're now demolishing it in Phase 2, as you can see here. Let's take a look at phase filters. What a phase filter does is it's a setting of the view. So here in my Phase 1 new construction, everything looks pretty good. We see the existing building over here. We see the new construction over here. Now, let's compare that to Level 1 Phase 2 new construction. Well, here things look a little different, right? Everything's a little bit busier here, particularly since we moved the demolition of this addition forward in time. Now we've got a lot of geometry here jumbled up on top of each other, and it's a little difficult to read. Probably what we'd rather have instead is a dedicated demolition plan. Now, a lot of new users to the phasing toolset would be tempted to create a demolition phase to deal with this so that you could go in and assign the view to the demolition phase and it would only show that phase. That is not necessary when using the phasing tool in Revit, and actually not desirable. Remember that phasing sets the lifespan of the objects. So what we're doing is we're saying this object was created here, demolished here. So we're going to rely instead on the settings of the view to tell us which objects come and go and when. And phase filter is the primary tool that we have to do this. So let me scroll down here on the properties palette, and you'll notice the current phase filter is set to show all. So let's look at some of the choices that are here. There are several. For example, I could do something like show new. Now, that's pretty obvious. What it did was it shows me only the new. That's probably what the name ought to say, is show only the new, and everything else gets hidden. Probably not what I wanted, but interesting just the same. What about show demo plus new? Well, now we're seeing maybe another interesting look, but still not quite what I was looking for. So let's go to something that is a little bit more useful. Scroll down here. We've got show previous plus demo and show previous plus new. I'm going to do show previous plus demo. Now, when I apply that, this is what we would want to see if we were doing a demolition plan. All the existing construction shows and the demolition shows. All the new construction is being hidden. So this is happening automatically based on the settings of those objects. Now, the only caution that I give you here is if you leave this view set this way, it becomes difficult for you to create new construction in this phase. If I go to the wall command and come over here off to the side and just draw a little wall, notice that I'm going to get a warning from Revit. The reason is new construction is hidden, and it's telling me down here that I probably have something hidden. So I'm going to select the view again, come down here, and change this to a different phase filter, show previous plus new. That will do the opposite. It will hide the demolition and show the new. And of course, that wall you can see is right there. So you could keep switching back and forth on the properties palette, but a better solution is to just create another view. We've already got a view for each phase. Why not duplicate one more time? And I'm just going to choose duplicate here because I don't have any detailing. I'll rename it by pressing F2, and I'm going to name this copy as my demo plan. Now with that selected, I'll come down here, and instead of show previous plus new, I'll change it to previous plus demo. And when I apply it, there's my demolition plan, and here's my new construction plan. So I now have two versions of the phase 2 plan, one that shows demo, one that shows the new construction. And I just want to make sure that I'm in the new construction one before I draw any new walls. Now, let's take a look at the settings that are used to control all of this. We're changing the phase filter, but it's actually a little bit deeper than that. I'm going to go to the Manage tab, click on the Phases button. We've already looked at project phases in a previous movie. Now we're talking about phase filter, but we're also talking about graphic overrides, because the way phase filters works is you've got several of them listed here, and you can see that the show all is grayed out. That one's built in, but all these other ones we can customize. And the way these work is for each condition, new, existing, demolished, temporary, for each condition, you can choose one of three possibilities: by category, overridden, or not displayed. Now, of the three, not displayed is probably the most obvious. It will hide any geometry that satisfies that condition. By category means leave it alone. Display it exactly as is. Do not override it. Do not change it. So in the background here, you can see the walls are bold and the windows are a little lighter. That's by category. It's using the default settings in the project on the Object Styles dialog to display that geometry. When it says overridden, it uses the settings on this tab right here. Now, these four conditions, new, existing, demolished, temporary, are also listed here. Existing, demolished, new, and temporary. These are considered the phase status conditions, and those four conditions are built into the software. We can modify the overrides that we want to apply to each of those conditions, but we can't change the conditions themselves. Those four always are there. What they mean is that existing is anything that was there before the current phase. Demolished is anything that we're tearing down in the current phase. New is anything we're adding in the current phase. And temporary is both being added and demolished in the current phase. So those are the four conditions that Revit recognizes. Over here, you can change the settings to do anything you like to match your office standards. So you can see that existing uses this gray color for the line work, and demolition uses this demolished line pattern, this dashed line pattern for the line work. So those overrides, if you don't like them, you can change them to anything you like to match your office standards. But back here on phase filter, whenever it says overridden, it applies those settings. So if I move this slightly out of the way, and in the background, we're looking at this one right here, show previous plus new. Well, the previous phase in this case is all this gray stuff, and the reason it's showing gray is because the existing condition is overridden. The new construction, they're not changing at all. They're leaving it by category. So that's why the walls are bold and the windows are slightly less bold and so on. Demolished and temporary are not being displayed, which is why we're not seeing the addition here. Now compare that to the other view that we set up, the demolition. It doesn't display the new in this case, but it shows the demolished and it shows that overridden. So that's why we're getting the two conditions that we see there. So phase filters tie the whole phasing solution together. A common mistake that many new users to phasing make is to create too many phases, such as a demolition phase. Once you fully grasp the potential of phase filters, it often eliminates many of the situations where you would otherwise be tempted to create another phase.